Hi, I'm Trina Foster. I am a realtor in the Northwest Valley, northwest of Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm here today with my good friend, Andre Pennington.
Hey,
Andre,
Trina.
hi. Thank you so much for joining me today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about you and what you do? I know you have many lines of business.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Andre Pennington. I'm an estate planning attorney in the West Valley of Arizona. One of the top estate planning attorneys in the state and probably the country. And we blend wills, trusts with wealth management. So, and then tax advantages. So, yeah, we're kind of an amalgamation of all of those disciplines with a strong foundation in estate planning.
And how how I understand this, but for anybody that's listening that may not get the correlation, tell me a little bit about how what I do and what you do tie together.
Sure. So, what we're talking about here, I think generally is building wealth, right? One of the ways we do that, one of the largest ways we do that as middle Americans is by purchasing a home,
Right.
right? So that is a lot of times the largest asset that a family is going to have. So you're going to help in that intimate process to make sure, right, that the real estate that that family or person is purchasing suits their particular needs, right? Their budget, their lifestyle. Make sure it's a place. I think it's more than just real estate, right? It complements them and their lifestyle. And then someone like me is going to help protect that, right? Now the foundational part, the estate planning, is making sure, look, if something happens to that client, that they have a plan to move that asset to their family or loved ones without any hassle, right? And then mixed in there are ways of protecting health, life, and wealth, right? So we might have a young family who purchases this largest asset, but what if they were to pass away tomorrow? Right? We want to make sure that their family is taken care of. So maybe they need some life insurance along with the asset and the estate plan. Um, what if someone's at the tail end of their life, the last chapter, right? We want to make sure that there's a plan to preserve wealth as well. So it all goes hand in hand, but basically it's looking at the client and based on that client's goals, developing a plan that makes sense for them.
Makes sense. And what are some of the risks of somebody not taking these steps, not being proactive and taking these steps?
Well, I'm as jaded as someone might come, right? So my office is broken into a few different pieces, but one of the largest ones is estate planning, wills and trusts, which is the plan to avoid the issues. Then you have another part of my office that deals only with those issues, right? So let me give an example. So let's say it's a married couple, and because of one of the spouse's credit, they decide, okay, well, one of the spouses has to, one spouse is going to be on this loan, the other's going to file a disclaimer deed, which essentially means treat this property as though I'm predeceased, like I have no interest in it, right? Well, if there's an accident with the spouse that is on the deed, that property skips the other spouse.
Yeah.
Right? Which obviously I could tell by the look on your face, you could see where that might be a major problem. Let's talk about a blended family, right? Where something similar like that's happening. Most people don't know without a will or without a trust to say something to do different. Essentially, if you have kids from a prior relationship, those kids are entitled to half of what you have when you pass, right? So it's fixing these little gaps that the law has put in front of us is what estate planning does. And then when we blend in wealth services, we can fix even more gaps in terms of, okay, what if a catastrophic event happens? Or sometimes it's like, what if a market crash happens? Do we have a certain amount of our wealth protected if it's invested? So estate planning is really essential to interlay in what you do, right? And that's why I commend you on having me on your show.
Thank you.
Like I can help share my message with your audience and the general public, because what we don't know is why people don't have estate plans.
Right. Yeah, and I've worked with clients on both ends of the spectrum. I've worked with clients that maybe the most recent one I did was the parent passed away, and that was the only parent that was left. And there were two sisters. Well, the house was paid for. And so one sister took the initiative and became
The executor.
yeah, she became the executor. So we were able to she had already done that when she contacted me. So thankfully we were able to get that property sold and transferred without too much difficulty. But what she had to go through to get there took quite a bit, and she wouldn't have had to do that had her father gone through some sort of estate planning.
Right.
And I've also been on the other end of the spectrum where everything was set to go and it was in a trust, and we were able to help that family and move through the transaction and with no problems at all, just as if I were helping you sell your house.
Right.
It was very uneventful, which is great for a transaction.
Right. I mean, that's the idea. It's one of these things. Are we going to make the choice to protect our family? Right. So it goes without saying, losing a loved one is one of the worst times in anyone's life. So these little things that we leave unsaid or undone become big events. Like you said, your first client, she was able to get through the process. But I can, based on what you're telling me and what I know that was a heightened sense of grieving, a heightened sense of stress. I don't know how else to explain it. The little things become big things,
Yes.
right? And if those things are done in advance, obviously it's not a positive time in life, but what it is it's an impressionable time in life, right? So we don't forget the death of a loved one, and it imprints on our mind, right? And the worst case scenarios that I see is when the family can't quite figure it out and they start arguing over that stuff. It can destroy family relationships. So that's what we do. Like, we spend most of our time helping clients avoid that scenario, but also making sure they have something to transfer,